Welcome to Deleted Saves. On this episode, Grand Theft Auto San Andreas on PlayStation 2. Many video games have drawn on historic events and time periods. World Wars I and II, the Old West, Rome, Warring States period Japan, you name it. But rarely are games made that evoke a more recent period in history, as remembered by the people who are still very much alive today and able to act as cultural historians. And considering the turmoil and influence that early 1990s South Central Los Angeles had on both American culture as well as world culture, it is perhaps for the best that Rockstar Games handled the period with their signature irreverence and attention to detail. Our subject for today is 2004's Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. But first, a little history lesson for our younger listeners. Brand spanking new post-Cold War United States in the early 1990s was a bit of a fucking mess. After a decade of capitalist excess, thanks to Reaganomics, coupled with social prudence in the face of the moral majority movement, as well as ultranationalism in pop culture media, many members of non-white, non-straight America were considered both the cause of our national ills and the only ones able to solve their own problems, provided they conformed to certain social ideals. Epidemics of AIDS killing hundreds, crack cocaine flooding poverty-stricken neighborhoods amidst a war on drugs imprisoning hundreds more, and the police brutality targeting young black men in major urban centers, particularly Los Angeles, was building a powder keg. At the same time, gang violence was on a meteoric rise. New forms of urban culture were both exciting suburban America, in forms of shoes, sports logos meaning more than just your favorite team, and particularly rap and gangster rap music, overtaking hair metal in the United States national charts. Things were swirling with unrest in L.A. and around the country, while at the same time waking the rest of the country up to a new form of something wrong in capital letters. And these are just the very broad strokes, mind you. When one night a black driver on the L.A. freeway named Rodney King was pulled over by white Los Angeles police officers, what followed lit the match to the powder keg. Regardless of King's guilt or innocence, or even what he was pulled over for, several officers arrived and began to beat him within an inch of his life. A passerby filmed the event, without police consent, and got the footage to the media, who were more than happy to air the whole gory spectacle. The officers were brought in for trial, and unanimously acquitted on all charges. L.A. exploded. Overnight there were riots, fires, looting, and violence not seen in the United States in decades. And unlike what the media portrayed, it was not just in L.A. where riots and unrest were happening. They just had the worst as far as epicenter of the events went. Despite warnings, America had to realize once again there was a deep divide, profound injustice, and boiling hate behind the glitz and glamour of American life. Interesting how history repeats itself again and again, eh? Now that we have a very basic primer, we can get back to the video game fun. Rockstar Games had had recent success with the Grand Theft Auto series imitating certain decades in recent American history for the backdrop of their crime thrillers, so of course the 1990s was ripe for digital replication. So Rockstar sought those who had been there and lived the life in LA during those days, gathering gang memorabilia, graffiti samples, cultural icons, politics, social commentary of the period, and, of course, a wide variety of music that could have been found flipping through station to station in LA during that time period in the early 90s. Gangster rap, of course, grunge rock, late 80s pop music hits, early 90s commercially popular country music, and a host of other genres most suburban top 40 stations wouldn't touch. Music soundtracks were very much a signature for the time for GTA games, to help evoke and encapsulate the mood of the game. We, the players, are put into the sneakers of our symbolic protagonist, Carl C.J. Johnson, a young black man just returned after 5 years away from home to deal with his mother's death due to drive-by shooting. He is almost immediately stopped on his way there by two very corrupt police officers who knew him years ago as a troublemaker and are intent on making sure his return is as awful as possible. CJ's older brother is still very much in the Grove Street gang, informing him of all the folks who died while he was away, almost as if blaming CJ for their deaths, as if his presence would have prevented the inevitable, and he is soon returned to gang life by a series of missions. CJ spends the first third of the game getting acclimated to life in Los Santos, our LA stand-in, as well as rising the ranks of the gang through one increasingly absurd mission after another. This is an irreverent Rockstar video game, after all. Until he is run out of town and framed by the very cops who stopped him on day one. The middle third of the game finds him making new friends and enemies in San Fierro, a stand-in for San Francisco, amid burned-out hippies and pot farmers, silly sidekicks, and Chinese gang members operating out of famed Chinatown. And of course, a paranoid CIA agent, or so he claims, that teaches CJ new and innovative ways to commit crime. The third of the game, the final third, kicks into overdrive, taking us to Las Venturas, Las Vegas to us, in that CJ is now in the rap business, as well as dealing in ultra-high-stakes crime, when suddenly he's able to expose his corrupt tormentors for who they are, and they are unanimously acquitted in a court of law, which causes Los Santos to go into an all-out deadly riot. Despite lampooning American pop culture throughout the game, in its post-Cold War victory lap, paranoia, and everything considered un-American, the Rockstar development team did a fantastic job capturing both what it was like to live during those times, as well as detail the frustrations of its main cast, and as those of the minority U.S., where no matter how much they conformed or how hard they worked or succeeded, nothing would ever really change because of the mechanisms of the system itself. Perhaps there is some 2000 anachronism in there, but not much. I have never been the biggest or even moderate fan of Rockstar's games, but even I can attest to the monumental game that they produced in GTA San Andreas. This was a behemoth of a release, attaining both commercial and critical success, and even scaring the less savvy American public, labeling it as yet another one of those quote-unquote murder simulators that certain fame-loving attorneys and media outlets desired to present to the still robust, pearl-clutching adherents to the moral majority. Such was the fame and presence of this title. And I'm not saying that Rockstar didn't lap up all that attention or capitalize on it to produce more games like it, just to tweak the nose of Mr. and Mrs. America, and even make a larger pile of cash. Any press is good press, or something like that, I guess. This is where I state where I stood about the game. While it may not, to me, be one of the greatest games of all time, as it has been placed in the pantheon of gaming, it was certainly good. Despite the cartoonish violence and dick jokes, it had something to say, even if as just a pastiche of the 1990s. It was a snapshot of an America that was sickly, wounded, dirty, and underserving many of its unique cultural communities, yet its pride would not allow it to admit that. And simultaneously it spoke of triumph, despite the odds, of communities and disparate people abandoned by the system, with a capital S, coming together to make something new, something that at times could be wonderful, despite the poverty and bloodshed. It was a nostalgia trip for me at the time of its release, of just a decade prior, when the world was simpler for me, a kid raised in a uniformly white rural America, but it was hardly simple for those who were not in such isolated conditions. We as a gaming public were not expecting it, would not see its like again in years to come, and it is a rare enough thing still when any game can be said to be such a cultural force and actually have a lot to say about the country and its people. There are good games, there are great games, there are wilder games than this, but there would only ever be one Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. Thank you for listening.